Hemisphere, Jim Ball, who's travelling at the moment, a little bit like the Leyland brothers. You've made your way to the tip of Queensland.
No, I didn't quite get that far. We spent the last few days at Cooktown.
Cooktown.
Ran into a listener, Mark of Wollongong.
Did you?
You've got a listener.
How did you know he was a listener?
We got talking about media and how he doesn't listen to mainstream radio, and I said, well, neither do I. He said, he said to me, I listen to TNT. Have you heard of TNT? I said, yeah. He said, I listen to Chris Smith. And I said, well, you obviously listen to me as well. So, yeah, that was Mark from Wollongong. He's doing what we're doing. He's just travelling. I don't know if he's got an end date, but
he must have thought you were pulling his leg, seeing that
probably. But if you're listening, Mark, I was there in the caravan, literally not two up, one up, right next door.
That's great.
Just listening to talking about Deborah Burks there. This must be election season. Wait for 2 weeks to slow the spread, Chris. It's all multiple crises on multiple fronts. They're throwing everything at it, whether it be lawfare, whether it be this kind of thing, drumming up putting people in jail, drumming up another crisis, whether in Ukraine, firing rockets into Russia. God knows where that could lead. So, yeah, these people will stop at nothing.
And this is the problem. They think that, like last time, when the public are scared enough, they want to stick and cozy up to the...
H.L. Mencken said exactly that, Chris. I think I mentioned his line last week about the whole aim of practical politics is to scare, basically, I'll paraphrase him, is to scare people to do exactly, and so come to Papa, we'll look after you, trust us. You know, that's what it's all about. I mean, you look at what's been going on just this last week. There was Vladimir Lenin. Well, he said Vladimir Putin. Lenin once remarked that there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. And this is another one of those weeks. They're back to back to back.
Yeah, very true. All right, Donald Trump's election subversion conspiracy case in Georgia has been placed on hold for now, as we've been covering in TNT News. But Steve Bannon, a former top advisor to Trump, he's got a report to prison from July 1 to serve a 4-month sentence for contempt of US Congress, according to a federal judge. Now, the decision means Bannon, who maintains somewhat of an influence in Trump's orbit, will likely be behind bars for a critical stretch of the US presidential campaign. But he just keeps on fighting. Have a look at the press conference. Have a look at this.
In the 2.5 or 3 years we've been here, look at the rise of MAGA, look at the rise of Donald Trump. If the election was held today, according to Harry Enton over at CNN, President Trump would win in a landslide. All of this, besides the major legal issues that have to be addressed, all of this is about one thing. This is about shutting down the MAGA movement, shutting down grassroots conservatives, shutting down President Trump. Not only are we winning, we are going to prevail, and every number and every poll shows that. There's nothing that can shut me up and nothing that will shut me up. There's not a prison built or a jail built that will ever shut me up. All victory to MAGA. We're going to win this. We're going to win at the Supreme Court. And more importantly, we're going to win on November 5th in an amazing landslide with the Senate, the House, and also Donald J. Trump back as President of the United States. Thank you very much.
What do you think, Jim? He's a force of nature, Steve Bannon. We know that. And he's partly right about Trump's ascendancy, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. 400 million since last week. That's what's flown in. People that didn't like Trump. Dr. Phil had a cut earlier. I saw it today, a video cut. He's got a lot of influence. I used to think he was
clout.
Very 80s and all that, but no, he has a lot of influence. And Dr. Phil's right on board with Trump. Their tactic, their strategy is to upend the entire chessboard. That's what they plan to do. They're like some unrequited lover. You know, if I can't have you, neither will anyone else. That kind of maniacal, and they're terrified because they know that if Trump gets elected, everything they've done to him. Well, some will say, well, like Alan Dershowitz said the other day, well, you've got to be highly principled about this kind of. I say, and me and Kelly took him on, and I agree with her. She said, no, these people will only learn if you give as good as you get.
Yeah.
That's the only way they're going to learn. There are these people, we're talking about a special kind of evil. America's undergoing what would you call it, a second American Revolution, an American Revolution, a civil war, all rolled into one. This is
certainly a cultural revolution.
Well, that too. It's cultural. Yeah. But I'm just talking about the way that they're putting their opposition in jail. I mean, Peter Navarro. Now, here's the point about this. And look, the country club type Republicans are getting a real lesson here. The Democrats have always, since the late 1700s, it was the Tammany Hall. That's where all this started. They have been like this. It cooled off a lot. It's thought not to be relevant today, but it picked up speed again in 1850. The tactics are still around today, even if Tammany Hall isn't. Yeah. And all the strategies we see, this ballot stuffing and all of this kind of stuff, throwing your opposition, anything to disrupt the march of your opposition. But the Blue Blazer Brigade, who are used to fighting by Marquess of Queensberry rules, they're getting a real-time lesson in eye gouging, broken bottles to the face. What was that Irish show that was on streaming? They were really violent. Broken bottles, scarring to the face and all this kind of stuff. That's the way the Democrats play it, but you still have a certain breed of Republican. No, we're better than that. We rise above. Well, bullshit, mate. If you don't get down and dirty with them, they're going to beat you every single time. Last week, Trump was found guilty on those 34 counts. Now, today, Steve Bannon to present to jail on July 1. Peter Navarro, Trump's economic advisor, he's about to finish a 4-month sentence. I think he comes out mid-July, something like that. So they're in a medieval cage fight. With the Democrats, and in addition to the usual eye gouging and the usual knee groins, there's going to be the broken bottles as the weapon of choice. They're going all out because they know, given a Trump win, what to expect. And let me just tell you something here. This is what it's all about. In an interview in the last 2 weeks, Mike Benz, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for International Communications and Information, he made this point. He said, in the shadow of the Kennedy assassination, there was a lot of blowback, and I'm just reading this here, and unwanted oversight of the intelligence community, because everyone knows it's yet to be revealed. It will be when Trump gets back in. The CIA did it, and it was too messy. They don't want that again. So he is saying that they've learnt that it's better to have a lone court with a few rogue judges, a loaded jury, rather than have a lone gunman doing the wet work, as he called it. And that's what this is about. This is assassination by other means. Yeah. That's what it's about.
Tucker Carlson thinks the literal assassination is still on. Now, over on the other side, Joe Biden, he's doing himself no favours. He's lost another media backer in the Wall Street Journal, which wrote, Biden is losing his mind. Well, you reckon? And even the left-wing Drudge Report has turned on him as well. He's doing himself no favours.
Look, I forget who it was a week or two ago, made the point that the Wall Street Journal is, and it's a Murdoch paper, somewhat schizophrenic. Its news tends to be kind of soft left, but its editorial pages and opinion pieces are not hard right, but more right of centre. Yeah. So, but I think they have no choice. I mean, how could any self-respecting newspaper or media organ back Biden? I mean, did you see him yesterday at the Normandy? I'm telling you, prediction, scribble it down, Biden won't see the end of the month. Yeah. I said months ago he will not be the candidate. I'm positive he will not. I don't know who will be.
He has degenerated significantly in the last 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, how solemn. I mean, Macron had to take over.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy totally lost it. Even the likes of CNN are making noises that if not exactly pro-Trump, are at least more amenable to the idea of the Trump 2.0. And Chris, these media players are always, repeat, always going to put their money on the horse of self-interest.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time. They don't want to be cast into the darkness.
No.
Because if they don't back Trump and Trump gets up, what are they going to do? Have to come crawling back. And so they're reading the tea leaves and deciding, well, we better get on board the Trump train. Having said all of that, though, and I've said for well over 12 months he won't be the candidate, Michelle Obama apparently is not interested. So I don't know. Here's my bet. I'll give you my bet. Tell me if I've told you this before. Sometimes I say things off the top of the head and forget that I've said them. Watch out for the Democrats to do a deal with RFK Jr.
Right. You haven't mentioned that before. No.
Right. Well, there you go. And just on Biden, this occurred to me the other day. I was listening to Megyn Kelly's podcast yesterday.
Yep.
And the many and varied, this is on the trial, the son's trial, Hunter Biden's trial. The many and varied aspects of the Hunter Biden trial, the texts, the actual audio of his voice reading his book. And it's just, the whole thing is an open and shut case of his guilt.
Yeah.
Now, it's in Maryland, which is Biden territory. The mother-in-law, or the stepmother, Jill Biden, she's sitting in the court most days, eyeing trying to intimidate the jury. Don't think they'll need much intimidation. They're all sort of Biden supporters. And then you've got, look, you take all of what Hunter Biden did, then you've got Ashley Biden writing in her diary about inappropriate showers with dad.
Yep.
You think, what a mess of a family. And he wants to be the father of the nation.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't even be a decent father within the boundary of his own family or the walls of his own home.
He's been there for 3.5 years too long. All right. Hey, listen, you'll find this interesting on our chat box. Mark from Wollongong, who you met at Cooktown, says, cheers, Jim. It was nice chatting here in Cooktown. Enjoy Port Douglas, but you'll need deep pockets to have breakfast at Port Douglas.
Yeah, we're at the Big Four, which is outside. It's kind of near. It's about a couple of k's out of Port Douglas.
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
it is really one of the best caravan parks we've stayed at.
All right, we're going to take a break. I've got to get some
Thanks,
news,
Chris.
just briefly, an update for our listeners and our viewers. We'll do that right now on TNT Radio. Let's get back to Jim Ball. Mining magnate Gina Rinehart has backed a group of parents at an elite girls' school in Perth for raising concerns about radical gender ideology being included in the curriculum. Now, the school is St Hilda's Anglican School for Girls, Miss Rinehart's own school. As a matter of fact, there are Rineharts at that school. Mrs. Rinehart's intervention comes as tensions at the school reached a tipping point over the appointment this year of a transgender teacher and another teacher who identifies as non-binary. Jim, the brainwashing is gross, isn't it?
Well, Chris, the first thing to be done here in this specific case, in an endeavour to lance the boil and purge the system of all the toxicity, the woke ideology, and just clear the infection from the bloodstream of the school, is to unceremoniously boot this principal by close of business today.
Yeah.
It's Friday. Why not? Perfect. Symmetry is everything. She and her woke baggage have to go. And look, just like anyone else carrying an infectious disease, back to bird flu and all of that kind of thing, in this case, we've got a mind virus. She must be isolated, kept away from the school, masked so she can't spread it, in the same way you'd purge a pedo from a school environment, because these people, they're toxic. And the question, where did she pick up this stuff? Where did she learn it? How did she get the job with that kind of baggage? Didn't they research her? Now, in the language of the pandemic, she obviously is, in this school at least, patient zero. She's been breathing her infectious disease and spreading a toxic ideology to the rest of the school community. That is the only way to send a message to others that tampering with tradition and values will not be tolerated. Out the door. You come here, we've got a tradition going back, I don't know, 60, 100 years, I'm not sure. But you come here and you want to upend everything because you've got this new way of seeing and viewing the world. Well, people like that, there's no place for them. And by tradition and values, I mean, those are the school. I mean, more broadly, the common garden variety values and the common garden variety traditions that make Australia tick as a cohesive and functioning society and culture. Pardon me. This stuff that they're up to, this is about creating division. And it's good to see that she's been outed. And I only hope that Gina Reinhardt comes out on top in this battle, because if once one gets a foot in the door, once they're allowed to get away with it, it will continue. Think about it this way. The proponents of this mind virus are stealing both the time, because she said in that story today, it takes up 30% of the curriculum, this woke ideology.
30%?
30%, yep, 30%, a third, all right? So, but think about it this way. The proponents of this mind virus are stealing both the time of the students and the money of their parents, spread this disturbing, insane and un-Australian ideology.
And how terribly confusing for those, say, in the early year 7s, year 8s of high school. Let's presume that the non-binary teacher is teaching at that grade, or I don't know whether they're teaching primary school, but let's just presume it's early teenagers. What are they supposed to think about this stuff?
But that's why they do it. They get them while they're young. Yeah, give me the child when he's 7, and I forget who said that, but give me the child when he's 7, I'll give you the man. It's been referred to in that article again as a clash of values. Now, I disagree with that. Woke ideology is valueless, so it can't be a clash of values. That gives them equal, right? That means their values are somehow equal, and one's trying to get on top of the other. It holds that all values, if you say that they're all equal, it holds that all values are equal. They're not. Simple as that. It gets back to what I was saying last Friday, about how everything is to be viewed subjectively through the prism where truth and values are just a matter of belief and opinion.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah. And it also begs the broader question, Chris, where do people like this principal, Fiona Johnston, become infected? As I asked at the beginning, where does that happen? And we've got to find patient zero. So we know after a long while that COVID came from a lab. Which lab does this crap come from?
Yeah, and it's very true. You'd only hope that parents who are very, very generous donors of a upwardly mobile school like St Hilda's might just actually hold on to their donations for the years ahead until something rectifies itself.
Well, and not only, but that's right. Their donations there, and there'd be big donations from somebody like Gina Reinhardt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's her alma mater and her mother's alma mater, and I guess her grandmother's. I don't know. But obviously it means a lot to them, and they don't want to see it trashed. And trashed it's being trashed by trash.
But where's the education minister, the Labor education minister? Up until when we came on air and I looked for this, they hadn't made any major comment about St Hilda's getting their act together.
Absolutely.
None. Look, not yet anyway.
No, that's right, Chris. What you say, well, where's the minister? Where's the prime minister?
Yeah.
Where's anyone to speak out against this stuff? Because as long as you let it fester, this boil has to be lanced. The pus has to be squeezed out, and that's what we're dealing. You're dealing with pus here, ideological pus.
Yep.
Am I drawing a graphic enough picture for you?
You sure are. You sure are. Now, federal opposition leader Peter Dutton has cranked up his criticism of the Greens party. I was telling the audience yesterday that Dutton and Albanese were on the same page in terms of being critical of the Greens following their support for vile anti-Semitic language, among other things. But Dutton has now called the Greens evil. Is he wrong?
No. But Peter Dutton, he's 100% right. The Greens are evil, always have been. Well, let me correct myself there. I don't think they've always been evil, but they are nowadays evil and worse. And I guess the question is, given the febrile state of politics, in a tight, say, head-to-head contact, Liberal versus Labor, in a dogfight, will Labor do a deal with the Greens to hold on to power? You betcha.
You betcha.
You bet. And not only the Greens.
And it's a short price. And may I add, it's a short-priced favourite after the next federal election.
Yes, and it may not just be the Greens; it'll be the Teals as well. If they can't get enough greens or the greens, they'll get the teals and whatever. They'll come to some kind of arrangement. But Chris, there is an upside to, and I hate to say this, I thought about this earlier today, and I thought, really, I can't say that, but damn it, you know what I'm like, I just do. There's an upside to October 7. I know that's hard to imagine, and it is that it has exposed so many people and organisations. What was it? The big American investor said about you can tell when the tide goes out, like who hasn't got enough money to keep it funded. You can tell when the tide goes out. You can see who's not wearing any swimmers, basically. But Douglas Murray, just after October, said, when a flare goes up at night on the battlefield, you see where everyone stands. And so it is with the likes of the Greens and the Teals. Yeah. Originally, the Greens under Bob Brown, although on the left, were genuine in their commitment to the environment. But since Brown, they've been on a hard left trajectory up until now, when they no longer and can no longer conceal who they really are. And they've dropped the mask and dropped any pretense to be 100% environment. They'll still use the environment to maintain a patina of respectability, but they're anything but respectable.
It's this Adam Band. It starts at the top, this stuff, and Adam Band is a human squib. He
totally
stands for nothing, pretends he knows about the economy, he knows bugger all, and hates things that are related to Australia's traditions.
And Chris, like all Marxists, the Greens, and Bant is showing this in recent days, they are masters of projection. And we see it a lot in America now. People are really becoming wise to this tactic of accusing everybody else of what you actually are. Yeah. And while accusing everyone else of having specific traits, it is they who are the party of division and hate. They loathe their fellow Australians. And they loathe and detest the history, the values and the traditions, back to the woke ideology in Perth, of Australia and Western civilization. They are a party of nihilists and anarchists. That's what they are. I foresee a time, I don't know, in the not too distant future, where the Greens as a party will simply go the way of all fringe parties. They'll go like the dodo. Remember, the Australian Democrats started out as a fine intention by former Liberal Fraser Minister Don Chipp.
Yep.
And they ended over there on the left as well. I think the Australian today, they said, and I like this, here it is, unsurprising, the Greens are an undergraduate protest party by nature, cannot be separated from what is happening on campuses at major universities. A bipartisan stand against the Greens in Parliament is a welcome sign that Labor finally understands things have gone too far. The undergraduate and destructive stance taken by Mr. Bant on the October 7 attacks by Hamas against Israel is proof enough of the harm the far left party poses to good government. Well said.
Well said. All right, one last issue. And it's a big issue for the Nine Network because its chairman, Peter Costello, must be under a little bit of pressure. He's certainly under pressure over recent work harassment complaints, of which I understand there are now 30 at Nine's television operations. But has this pressure that he's under, did that lead to a clash he had at Canberra Airport with a reporter from The Australian, or is it something else and was a little bit of a beat-up? Let's have a look anyway.
Mr. Costello, my name's Liam Mendes from The Australian. Do you support Mr. Sneesby as CEO and his handling of the Darren Wick saga? Were you aware of the allegations against Mr. Wick before he left Nine?
Thank you.
Were you aware of those allegations, Mr. Costello? Why won't you support Mr. Sneesby publicly?
Good to see you.
Well, you've got to answer the questions, Mr. Costello. Don't. You've just assaulted. Don't. You've just assaulted me.
I have a feeling that was a little bit more than an accident, Jim.
Wah, wah, wah. You just assaulted me. Boo. Effing who? Diddums. Oh,
It
dear.
did sound very weak and
Yeah,
pathetic,
didn't
didn't it?
pathetic, did it? I'm on Costello's side. Get out of my way, you bloody insect. You've been insulted. You've been humiliated, scarred, and had your feelings hurt. Listen, fella, listen, you panty waste. No one cares. You want to
Yes.
get close and personal and try and make yourself central to your own headline. Well, that's what comes with consequences.
Yes, in the old days, Jim, in the old days when I was a reporter at A Current Affair, I was thrown down 2 flights of stairs once. I was thrown over a balcony.
Yeah.
I was also thrown down an escalator. But in all those occasions, I didn't go, boo-hoo, you've assaulted me. And because at the end of the day, I was about 3 inches from their nose.
Uh-huh. Well, that's the point. You get in their space and in their face. I mean, you've got, even Peter Costello's got rights, and you want to get inside someone's space. Well, this is what can happen to you, and this expectation, he said there, was you've got questions to answer. Well, yeah, so what? To you, peasant, insect? No. I'm sure Costello has, Chris, and I'm sure he will answer those questions, but not in a current affair, foot in the door, ambush style setting, but at a time and place of his choosing. Truth is, Chris, walking backwards, camera in hand, looking for a confrontation, this journo from The Australian, my favourite paper, got the sensation and the fleeting fame he was looking for. The lesson is, Chris, F around and find out.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that Costello could have backed off a little bit, but I think you're entirely correct about if you're that close to him, anything's liable to happen. And if you're inflaming someone and you're aggravating someone, well, they're allowed to go about their business, which is get on a plane, get out of his way.
That's right. He'll answer questions over time, whenever it suits him, not when it suits some buffhead from the media.
Good stuff. I love how you pull no punches. It doesn't matter which side of the agenda you're on.
Well,
fantastic, mate.
No, don't tolerate bullshit, Chris. That's got to be the philosophy.
That's very, very true. Mark Collins is his name from Wollongong. He sent you a message, so he might be a friend for life, Jim.
Good on you. Thanks, Chris.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
See you
Jim
next
Ball,
week.
who's in Port Douglas, from Cooktown, ran into a TNT listener and a viewer, which is outstanding. Glad that they listened to the program. We look forward to that continuing into the future. Let's take a break. If you want to be part of the conversation on any of those topics, and there are some wild ones there, jump in, go for your life, from Australia or New Zealand, 1-800-670-310. From the UK, 033-0024-1026. From the US or Canada, 1-888-201-6425. Plenty to talk to you about right after the break on TNT Radio. Well, this week, as I say, Australia talking nuclear power, and my first guest has his own unique take on opposition leader Peter Dutton's big announcement. Let's bring in the former National Nighttime Talkback Radio King and the president of the Politically Incorrect Society, Jim Ball. He joins us live, I understand, from beautiful Port Douglas once again. Jim Ball, come in from paradise.
Yes, it's going to be difficult leaving here. We're leaving on Sunday, but we're only going 45 minutes south to Ellis Beach.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's great. Look, and what's also great is to see this great unravelling. It's going on everywhere. Look, this is being mugged by reality, brought to life. It is truly being mugged. They just never, and look, I'll come to it in just a moment, but I talked about this 2.5 years ago. Just on it, the first point I think we need to make several points, but the first one is that it's good politics, but in the face of the absolute fraud of expecting renewables to deliver baseload power, it's the right thing to do. Simple as that. The second thing is that I find it rather ironic, and I've said this before, that here in Australia, we are prepared to dig the stuff up, uranium, prepared to dig it up and ship it off overseas and benefit financially, but we're not prepared to go to the obvious next step and mine it and process it and use it ourselves. I can't square that circle.
No.
The third thing is that when we overcome our aversion or prejudice and phobia to nuclear, this also has the potential, if we do this right, has the potential to expand out way beyond the energy sector into other nuclear industry characteristics. I don't know what they would be, but here's a new form of energy. Let's work with it and see maybe, I don't know, nuclear powered cars. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but if they can get nuclear power stations down to this micro, I think it's called I can't think of the acronym, but down
the
to
SMRs, yeah,
SMR,
the small modular reactors.
That's right. If they can get those down to the size of a shipping container from what they were, we can get them down to the size to fit in your boot. And the fourth thing is kind of tied to the third thing, is that given our geological and political stability and the immense tracts of land we have in Australia, government-owned land at that, right in the middle of nowhere, there's no reason why Australia can't become the repository for the world for nuclear waste. We could actually shove it back into the mine from whence it came.
Yeah, but right now, we are sending our waste from Lucas Heights to France where they recycle it. There are processes for recycling operating now. We don't have to wait 10 years.
Yeah, and this gets back to my point 3 or whatever it was about other industries. We could become a repository, a recycling repository, and then bury it in the ground. We could take the entire nuclear waste of the world. And
which is what Bob Hawke wanted to do.
Yeah, nuclear is central to the whole AUKUS submarine deal. So again, square the circle. I'm damned if I can. But I always look to people, just ordinary folk out there in the suburbs. There was a letter in the Australian today. Love this. Two lines, 2.5. I generally determine whether a policy is good by looking at those who oppose it. With Bowen and Bant opposed, nuclear is looking on solid ground. That's David Cook of Drummoyne. And another one here, before criticising Peter Dutton's future energy plans, it'd help if Chris Bowen gave us cost estimates of the transition to renewables, including the cost of all related infrastructure until 2050. They go on about cost, but the cost so far with renewables. But look, if you'll indulge me, Chris, just for a few moments, I want to go back to when Scott Morrison was the Prime Minister and something I wrote at the time on this very subject leading up to the last election. And it's pretty long, but I've condensed it down to just a few parts, the salient points. People want to be engaged, and what the government needs to do to understand and accept that only an inspiring, visionary and dramatic announcement can galvanise the electorate and slingshot the coalition roller derby style, remember roller derby, to the front of the pack and at least get them some attention and make them competitive. That announcement must be about nuclear energy. That was 2.5 years ago. And this was when Morrison was there.
And here it is. It's arrived.
Up until recent years, and particularly at the time nuclear energy was banned in 1998, it was of no particular interest to the average citizen because energy was abundant and its cost and reliability wasn't an issue. It wasn't front of mind, and no one, not even the experts and political class, foresaw energy as the political issue that it is today. People weren't tuned into the climate matters. The idea of net zero is way off into the future. But now people who were never interested in the politics of energy or where it came from and just flicked the switch are fully engaged. We need to create a nuclear energy industry to unshackle and free the nation from our infantile undergraduate anti-nuclear mindset. For Scott Morrison and now Peter Dutton, this is one of those Shakespearean Brutus tides in the affairs of men moments.
Yeah.
And to borrow a couple of lines from Gough Whitlam, dare I, it's time, and it's time, as Whitlam said in, I forget what it was about, I think it was to his own policies, it's time to crash through or crash. And make no mistake, this is a pivotal moment in the nation's history. And if you're going to die on a hill, well, nuclear energy has got to be a good place to start doing the dying.
Yeah.
And the key quote, and just on one more thing here, Chris, Donald Horne wrote that book about the lucky country. And a lot of people misconstrue what he was getting at. And the key quote in the opening pages of the book, Australia is a lucky country run mainly by second-rate people who share in its luck. It lives on other people's ideas. And although its ordinary people are adaptable, that's us, ordinary folks, most of its leaders in all fields so lack curiosity about the events that surround them that they are often taken by surprise. But basically what he was getting at, Australia is its own worst enemy because we look at this abundance of sunlight and minerals and agriculture and we think, God, aren't we lucky? Well, we're only lucky because we exploit it. And it's not the government that does any of that. They're useless. As we know, all governments are.
It's time we started running fast towards a nuclear future. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind.
Absolutely.
The director of SMR Nuclear Technology, Trevor St. Baker, who I've spoken to before, made some really interesting comments on the ABC Business Show this week. Have a listen to this.
Once the small modular reactors came in, the idea was that if you can have nuclear submarines, that you could have the nuclear submarines on land just as safely as having them in submarines. And we only set that up not to build nuclear, not to promote nuclear, just to say that if we're going to get rid of coal, we had to look at all the options for baseload 24/7 power, and in every other continent, nuclear is a small but important 5 to 10% contributor to the energy mix in every continent in the world.
Every continent, Jim, except the continent that has a third of the uranium.
It's a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. I read back when I was at 2UE, I left GB, went to UE for 12 months. I read a book and interviewed the author of the book, a guy called Tom Blees, BLEES, and it's called Prescription for the Planet. And he gave the whole book was about the evolution of these small reactors. And basically it started, I think it was in the 90s, and Bill Clinton, and they were booming ahead with it. And for some reason, Bill Clinton knocked it on the head. We could have had these things years ago. But anyway, point is we're talking about them now, and the sooner we get them, the better.
Well, what about politically? What about politically? There's a lot of commentators who are saying he's been too brave by half and he's going to die on that hill. There are others who are saying that if he can explain it consistently leading up to the election, he'll pull everyone over the hill with him.
Yeah, absolutely. All he's got to do is wave the electricity bills around. If you want zero net or net zero, if you want your electricity bills to be lower, not higher, I mean, that's all he's got to do is just hammer the cost of energy to this. We're talking kitchen table economics here.
Yeah.
And this is what people like. I got my bill the other day for our place down in Sydney, and it was, I think, $2,400. Unbelievable.
You got a football team staying at your house?
No, it's just a big house.
Wow.
But it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And okay, we're in a position where we can afford it, but I can imagine that, if somebody else, they may not be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the politics are all on his side. Yes, they will come with the Chernobyl thing. They'll come with the 3 Mile Island business, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all of that. They will do all of that. The three-eyed fish and stuff like that. But I just think people just don't believe what they're being told anymore about anything.
No, you're right. I think it can be a winner. He's got to start explaining it and have faith and confidence in the fact that he can. Let's take a break. I've got to get a news update for our viewers and our listeners. Let's do that right now to the newsroom on TNT Radio. And a postscript to our discussion about nuclear with Jim Ball from Pelly, 69. He writes, Albo is supposed to be giving us $300 off our bill. Well, it's $275, he promised. I just got a letter from my electricity and gas provider. Based on current usage, my bills will go up $425 per year. Well, you're lucky.
It's all pea and thimble, Chris.
Oh, it is. It's
pea and thimble. Yeah.
On Wednesday, 2 Just Stop Oil activists covered part of Stonehenge in orange powder paint. Here are these radical eco-zealots in action. Jim Ball, do they win or lose their argument by doing something like that?
Oh, totally. Lose. Absolutely. Like most people, I think I've just noticed, and again, we twice in 2 weeks, Henry Ergas is on this very topic today. I first learned about that protest, if you want to call it that, by Stop Oil overnight. And I just about fell out of bed. Couldn't believe that somebody, it's the self-righteousness of it all. That's what I find nauseating. They're so self-righteous and so up themselves and they know best. And putting 5,000 years of history aside, the world has been waiting for them. This is their moment. We saw the toppling of the statues in America back in the summer of 2020, the BLM riots, billions of dollars of damage and so on, coast to coast. Nothing happens with these people. In more recent times in the UK, as we just saw there, and then there was the Mona Lisa and all of that painting and throwing stuff. Fortunately, those things were covered by perspex. So, and that's the other thing too. When we see these in museums where there is security, nobody stops these people.
No.
You just, where the hell is security? Globally,
there were two tour guides stopping them there. Two tour guides.
Yes. Yeah. And that obviously their bread and butter too. Globally and here in Australia, it's been the outbreak of anti-Semitism and things like the spraying of the Jewish MHR Josh Burns electoral office. And I think it was the union leader for the police, was it? I can't recall. Luke Helikari, he's urging Victorian police to treat the pro-Palestinian attacks on electorate officers and trades hall more seriously. And he's right. Perhaps it's the Victorian police that gave Enid Blyton the inspiration for her character, Constable Plod. They just don't seem interested in... And you notice the other thing, they all wear masks. You know, they all wear the Kaifa, whatever they call it, the Palestinian thing, or the Antifa type all black gear with black masks and so on.
Yeah.
But
they can't show their face and stand behind what they believe in.
No, what we don't want is more of that sort of beige, anodyne, boilerplate stuff about the full force of the law and being held to account. And just think of it this way. And then this is no better than Pol Pot and his year zero business, back in the 70s. It's no better than the Taliban blowing up the Bamiyan Buddhas back in 2001. They were 1,800 years old, I think it was. So we've got pagans in the 21st century destroying the I don't know what to call them, the places of worship or ritual for the pagans of 5,000 years. It's pagan versus pagan. And that's what these people are. They want to take us back to those times. As I said, they're no better than Pol Pot and the whole year zero business. But Henry Ergas today, Anthony Albanese may sincerely regret the incivility now escalating into vandalism and violence that mars our campuses, streets and public venues. But it is undeniable that the left, in legitimising the politics of fury, did not only plant the seeds of today's hatreds each and every time an issue appeared, it has fertilised their shoots, ensuring they grow deep roots. Its opponents are never merely wrong, but they are evil, degenerate, that's us, evil, degenerate, minority that deserves to be hounded out of the Australian community. To make things worse, not one of our institutions has shown the courage of their 1960s predecessors displayed in holding the line. At best, their extravagantly paid managers have hidden behind statements that expertly combine the semblance of seriousness and concern with a dispensation from both. At worst, they have fueled the rhetoric of anger and accommodated its proponents while hypocritically washing their hands of responsibility. Pardon me. Henry Ergas nails it again.
Yeah, it does. And this week, of course, WA Labor Senator Fatma Hayman called on the government to recognise a Palestinian state. Now, we ran a poll on Wednesday on this. Almost 70% disagreed. Do you see her remaining in the Labor Party while she keeps agitating in this way?
Well, she shouldn't. She should resign. But she's a first-term senator, so it's a cushy job, and it's all the glamour and the profile that goes with it. So she'll try and forge and market that into something post-politics. But she's asking, and we covered this a couple of weeks ago when the UN were going to. There was a vote at the UN on this, and she keeps talking about we've got to recognise a Palestinian state. Well, how about instead of the mindless chants and the propaganda, Senator Payman literally draw on a map of the Middle East where this Palestinian state would be. They're asking us to recognise something that doesn't exist yet, which is kind of cart before the horse. The media needs to hold her feet to the fire on this. They should sit her down, Mike Willesee style from years ago, and say, look, here's a map, here's a pen. I want you to draw on me on national television where this Palestinian state would be.
Yeah.
Call her out and make her put it down in writing. You say you want the Australian government, Ms. Payman, whatever your name is, to recognise a Palestinian state. Okay, tell us what it looks like. Otherwise, it's so obtuse. We have no idea what you're talking about. But again, as I said, this is cart before the horse. At this stage, despite the decades going back, I don't know, in my lifetime, but back to the 1930s, the Palestinian state has been an idea central to Middle East politics. There have been, I don't know how many accords and announcements and debates and declarations and meetings, and the Palestinian people have rejected every one. As Abba Eban, the Israeli the Israeli diplomat said, that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So far, what we've got is all 1960s and 1970s Yasser Arafat-inspired slippery rhetoric, and deliberately left vague. They daren't say the quiet part out loud about what they really want. It's all been statement about the idea of a state. That's what it is. And the entire scam is nothing more than a wink and a nod to the true believers and the useful idiots. All we've got is this idea of Palestinian state. Gaza was a Palestinian state. How did that work out, eh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add too that there are all sorts of different protests happening around the world, pro-Palestinian protests and anti-Jewish protests. How's this for a protest, Jim? A 12-year-old Jewish girl was gang raped by child attackers who taunted her with anti-Semitic slurs in a case that has shocked France. The attackers placed anti-Semitism in the centre of the country's upcoming parliamentary elections, with political parties condemning the attack and pointing fingers at one another. The assault happened on Saturday in a place northwest of Paris as the victim was walking home after partying with her boyfriend. Two teens approached her and dragged her forcibly into a warehouse. A third suspect, 12, joined them, hurling anti-Semitic insults, calling her dirty Jew, as the other boys beat, threatened and raped her and forced her to perform oral sex. The attackers put a lighter to her cheek, threatened to kill her if she went to the police, and instructed her to return to the same place the next day with €200. Protests come in different forms, Jim Ball.
That's appalling. I mean, I'm pretty good with words, but that one knocks me sideways. And what happens? How did these people get into the country? See, this is it. You can let somebody into the country, but if they bring that antediluvian mindset with them, and that's what we're talking about here, barbarism and antediluvian. There was one the other day, there was a video on X of parades through somewhere in Gaza, and little kids, 8, 9, 10, with machine guns, right? And you think, well, no wonder they grow up to be monsters.
Of course.
Because they're taught to be monsters.
Exactly. All right, something a little less in your face, so to speak. A new study has found that women, particularly mothers, continue to spend substantially more time than men doing unpaid domestic work, and many are not happy about it. The research is part of the Melbourne Institute's taking the pulse of the nation survey. Do you have some personal insights or maybe confessions you'd like to make, Jim, on this?
Yeah, we'll get to that. But when I first read this morning, my mind straight away went to, there was a meme I've seen a few times over the years, and it's just imagine a guy sitting back in his lounge chair saying, ladies, if a man says he'll fix it, he will. there's no need to remind him every 6 months.
True.
It's true. It goes on to say women, and particularly mothers, continue to spend substantially more time than men doing unpaid domestic work, and many are not happy about it, this report finds. Well, colour me shocked. The study also defines another gender gap when it comes to household chores, the gap in perception between men and women about how much they actually do. Well, this all goes back to the days of when all the men they did all the hunting and the fishing, and the carrying and the fixing.
Yeah.
Full-time employed women, they go on to say here, work slightly more around the house than full-time men, 16 hours to 14 hours a week. Even around RV life, around the caravan park, there are pink jobs and blue jobs, as they call them. I've yet to see a woman, for example, emptying the toilet cassette. It just
Is that your job?
That's every bloke's job.
Right.
Yep. Even like in my own life, I grew up on a farm up in the Hunter Valley. The bloke's day was about mustering and milking and lifting and ploughing. I'm dropping my G's, you may notice there, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
The women's work, and this is cross-cultural. Aboriginals the same. The men went out and did the spearing and the fishing and the gutting and the filleting, and I'm still doing it. It's become a habit. And the women stayed around the campfire, and I don't know, they swept the place or whatever they did, whatever they do. Apparently, 1 in 3 Australian mothers with kids at home are dissatisfied with the division of household labour compared to just 8% of fathers. But of course, in 2024, all that has changed with the women in the workforce and the march of technology. So it's taken a while. When this has been a part of our social structure for hundreds and hundreds of years, without women in the workforce, that's only been a feature of the last 40, 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah.
It takes a while for the roles to be not reversed, but reassessed.
And I think they are being reassessed in a great way. And, I have a lot to do with, young parents who have children who have both jobs, and you can actually mirror their lives. So the wife does exactly the same as the bloke in so many ways.
Yep.
But in terms of the home, it is still an imbalance, but it's not a great imbalance like it was when I remember having my first children.
Yeah, I mean, no more coming home and sitting down, cracking a beer.
No, none of that.
No, the thing is, my wife likes cooking, and of course, that's a messy business. And me, being somewhat OCD, like cleaning up. Well, I don't like it, but it's got to be done, and I can't stand. I hate mess, can't stand it.
Yeah.
So I do that, and I do the washing and whatever it takes to make the place work. And that's the point. If 2 people are working, everybody does whatever it takes to make the place work. Yeah. That includes the kids.
Yeah.
Even the small ones, if they can take something from point A to point B in the house or run next door, whatever, includes them as well.
My kids are in charge of garbage. They don't like it, but one of them does the recycling, the other does the garbage, and I think they want to swap roles. They want to change roles.
Look, it's good. It's good. I was going to say education. It's just good life skills.
Yeah.
To learn. This is what you've got to do. The mess doesn't clean itself.
No, exactly. We don't have slaves. We don't have
cook itself.
Yeah, correct. I'll let you go. You enjoy Port Douglas and Ellis Beach in particular. You'll have to tell us about Ellis Beach. I've never been there.
Oh, yeah. It's 45 minutes south, and it's right on the beach. So
beautiful.
I got some great drone shots over the weekend. I'm just putting together a bit of a video I'll send to you.
Okay, good.
I'd like to have a look, Chris.
Yes. I'll catch up next week, mate. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
See you.
There you go. Jim Ball, fantastic to have him on board, and very interesting take on nuclear, and he's very confident about Peter Dutton being able to sell it, but in particular highlighting the fact is, do you want to go down a renewable path that is only going to increase your electricity bills? The country can't afford it. You can't afford it. There's got to be another answer, and the answer's got to be a baseload power answer, and the baseload power answer doesn't come from renewables.